The gaming industry has become a shadow of its former glory. What was once a sanctuary for free expression, vulnerability, and innovation has become nothing more than a shambling, lobotomized husk that has been defined by its vapid sterility, incompetence, and contempt for its supposed audience. When was the last time that you could enjoy a piece of mainstream media that didn't attempt to proselytize to you about your moral failings as an individual, or about the fact that you are not imbibing and regurgitating their propaganda, like a good little lemming? Make no mistake, this isn't a criticism of the industry, nor is it an excoriation of the hapless game developers, journalists, and directors that continue to attempt to drag the medium into the abyss. This isn't even a complaint about where the industry currently stands. No, what I'm elucidating here is that no matter how bleak things may seem to be from time to time, the only power that these people can wield against us is the power that we have intentionally stripped from ourselves, for better or worse. Despite the ubiquitous political propaganda and ardent obsession with deconstructing video games from postmodernist devs, despite the backing of soulless billion-dollar companies and overinflated marketing campaigns, despite the overeducated yet low IQ gaming media's consistent whinging about who gamers are, what gamers should love, and what video games should be, the true essence of what makes a great game continues to rise to the surface, almost in direct contrast to the amount of artificial force being placed upon the industry. The fact that a title like Elden Ring, a video game that places its gameplay at the forefront of the experience, eclipsed every narrative-focused AAA blockbuster from Sony and their ilk in 2022 is a testament to the fact that no matter what we are force-fed from gaming journos, gaming devs, and ideologically possessed Twitter bots, the most important thing about this medium is and always will be the gameplay and interactivity. It's almost like the point that I've been espousing on this channel for years is actually true. Who would have thought? With that being said, it is my pleasure to once again say, hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Atrophy of Soul. It's been a long time and you may have forgotten my name, but you sure as hell didn't forget this sensual, smooth voice now, did you? I know, that would be impossible. I'm sure you missed the arrogance, self-assuredness, and sesquipedalian language used in my videos as well, but fret not, as I've returned to bring you a fair dose of New Year's cheer in addition to rampant self-indulgence. As my longtime subscribers are intimately aware, you can't have one without the other with me, so if you hate people who love the sound of their own voice, people who have an ego that would make Andrew Tate envious, and people with the body and flowing luscious hair of a Greek god, then you've come to the wrong place, my friend. Reddit is that way. Don't spill your soy lattes on the way out. We can't have you missing your daily intake of estrogen, now can we? Beta! Now for those of you who stuck around, happy belated New Year from yours truly. Let's now talk about the games that I'm actually looking forward to playing through in 2023. Believe it or not, there are a decent amount of large profile releases that I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on this year from a variety of studios, including a few Western developers, surprise surprise. The first game that I want to talk about here is Forespoken. This is a game that has been on my radar since its announcement solely due to how each of its disparate design elements seem to be hell-bent on working against one another. For all intents and purposes, the dialogue, character design, and premise seem to have been tailor-made to encapsulate just about everything I hate about modern video games. However, paradoxically, the core gameplay systems and combat mechanics seem to have been tailor-made to encapsulate everything I love about video games. It's almost as though the game devs want me to actively hate how much I'm going to enjoy the experience, and you know what? I'm 100% here for it. I've often said that as long as the gameplay in a video game is well designed and fun, that's all that really matters in the end. Despite my gripes about the cringe dialogue, mediocre character design, and tired premise, I can't deny how much I enjoyed playing through the demo for Forespoken that was released a few weeks ago. It plays very much like a deeply refined and competently made version of Final Fantasy XV. Everything that I wanted Final Fantasy XV to be from a core gameplay perspective is alive and well here, with various spells to cast, movement options and melee skills to enact, smoothly satisfying animations and kinesthetics to experience, and some interesting, if not a little brain-dead enemies to fight and obliterate. Forespoken releases at the end of this month, and I'll definitely be picking it up, especially since the story and characters are a lot more tolerable with the Japanese dub on. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I know next to nothing about how this next game is going to play. All that I know is that the two trailers that I've seen for this game look incredibly badass, frenetic, and visceral, and that's all I really need at the end of the day. Also, the fact that it's being developed by Team Ninja, the studio behind the greatest Soul-style games ever made in terms of core gameplay, Neo and Neo 2, and more importantly, the studio behind the greatest hack-and-slash franchise of all time next to Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, I can't help but be excited for what this game is going to be. Here's to hoping that there's no stamina meter to bog down the incredibly well-choreographed action. Speaking of Soul-style games, the sequel to the greatest piece of Star Wars media to be released since Disney's acquisition of the IP, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, looks as though it will be vastly improving upon the systems introduced in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. As fun as Fallen Order was, it was bogged down by plenty of technical issues, wonky enemy AI, glitches, and a lack of polish that satiated the entirety of the experience. Here's to hoping that EA actually allows the devs enough time to iron out all of the more egregious flaws that Fallen Order was encumbered by. You can tell that Fallen Order was developed by a passionate group of people who really wanted to make the best Star Wars game that they could. They were just held back by corporate bureaucracy and a stilted development schedule. Nonetheless, Jedi Fallen Order had a heart to it that shined through and through, and if Jedi Survivor is even half as good as Fallen Order, it'll be the second best piece of Star Wars related media released since Revenge of the Sith. Yes, Rogue One and The Mandalorian are hot garbage. Yes, you are wrong if you enjoyed them. Yes, you should feel bad about yourself, and no, God should not have mercy on your immortal soul. Don't at me. Well, it wouldn't be an Atrophy of Soul video if I didn't talk at least a little bit about Devil May Cry, right? You guys know that I can't help myself. It's one of my favorite game series after all, and of course it includes my favorite character of all time in any piece of media, the legendary Dark Knight, Dante. But unfortunately, we are not here necessarily to talk about Devil May Cry, at least not today. That'll be a video for later. However, what we do have here is a game that has deep connections to Devil May Cry 5 in particular, because the combat director of Final Fantasy XVI is Ryota Suzuki. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And Suzuki is a prior Capcom dev who worked on titles such as Dragon's Dogma, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and of course, Devil May Cry 5. For all intents and purposes, it looks as though Suzuki's bringing a lot of his design philosophy from Capcom over to Square, and his expertise is really shining through because the gameplay in Final Fantasy XVI looks incredibly fun. All I see when I'm watching the gameplay in Final Fantasy XVI is medieval Devil May Cry, and I am 100% on board for that. It also helps that the lead character looks like a goddamn badass, the game is oozing with style, and the giant kaiju battles are just the cherry on top of an incredible looking experience. I literally have no idea what's going on in the story, nor do I really care, but man, this game just looks fun through and through. Classic Final Fantasy fans may hate the newfound focus on action that the series has decided to take over the past decade or so, and to be honest, outside of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the core gameplay in a lot of these later Final Fantasy games has been mediocre at best, but Final Fantasy XVI looks to be a step in the right direction in terms of the series finally having a refined and well-implemented combat system. This is going to be a day one buy for me, without a doubt. I cannot wait to play as medieval Dante, who summons a bunch of kaiju monsters and battles with other kaijus. That's going to be super goddamn fun. I cannot wait. So before we continue on with the most anticipated games list, I would like to take a brief moment to give you a message from our sponsor, Raid Shadow. No, I'm just joking. There's no real sponsor for this video, but I would like to draw your attention to a particular graphic novel that I am very proud to share with you guys right now. From the Compendium of the Unmasked comes a thought-provoking tale of terror with rich storytelling, finely detailed artwork, and incredible world building. Lindsay Lee's graphic novel, The Hollow Raven, is now available for purchase on Indiegogo. Be sure to purchase your copy today on Indiegogo and tell her that Atrophy sent you. Here is a brief trailer for the graphic novel, and then I will be right back with the rest of the games list. So once again, be sure to go to Indiegogo. The link is in the description below. Check it out. It should be the first link. And seriously, do yourself a favor and pick up the graphic novel. I've only really talked about it in passing on this channel, but I have a deep, rich love for the Legend of Zelda franchise that I've yet to properly share with all of you. If I could choose a top 3 franchises of all time, there's no doubt that The Legend of Zelda would be in one of those top 3 spots. Where would it be placed? I have no idea, but it would definitely be there nonetheless. Very much like most of you guys, I am highly anticipating the follow-up to the critically acclaimed and universally beloved Breath of the Wild. However, unlike the vast majority of you out there, I thought that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was highly disappointing. Notwithstanding, it was definitely the perfect template for what an evolution of the Zelda formula could be, but it failed in execution due to an overwhelming lack of true dungeons, new abilities for Link to unlock, mediocre boss battles, and an overall repetitive nature that most open world titles tend to fall victim to after the first few hours of gameplay. Now that Nintendo has the core structure of Breath of the Wild to build off of, I'm hoping to see a lot more design ideas re-implemented into the franchise from the past while expanding upon what made Breath of the Wild so enjoyable in the first place. The return to having true, fully fleshed out and multifaceted dungeons for players to explore that could be tackled in any order with various items that players can experiment with, akin to something like A Link Between Worlds, in my view, would be the perfect way to make sure that the open world structure that Breath of the Wild was going for remains consistently rewarding, giving players far greater incentives to fully explore the beautiful designed world of Hyrule. With a darker tone that seems to be taking bits of inspiration from Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, I have great hopes that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom could be a title that stands amongst the greatest games in the franchise's history. Here's to hoping that Nintendo does pull it off. We will see later this year. And here we are, the moment that you've all been waiting for, the moment of truth, the game that I'm both dreading and looking most forward to in 2023. Resident Evil 4 Remake. It shouldn't come as a surprise. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Resident Evil 4 does not need a remake. That doesn't mean that Resident Evil 4 can't be improved upon. That doesn't mean that RE4 is perfect, but as it stands, it's still an amazingly well put together game with some of the greatest boss battles, combat scenarios, and pacing that has ever been presented in the medium, period. Resident Evil 4 is one of the very few games that stands in history as one of the largest contributors to shaping the industry into what it would eventually become, for better or worse. Just about every third-person shooter that you can think of, from Gears of War to Uncharted to Dead Space to The Last of Us, and even recent titles such as the Callisto Protocol, owe their very DNA to the innovations propounded by this genre and industry-defining title. So to remake such a cornerstone in the legacy of video games is akin to someone deciding to touch up the Mona Lisa because Leonardo may have missed a few spots here and there. Notwithstanding, I have zero doubt in my mind that RE4 Remake will be fun for what it is. I was pleasantly surprised by the last few trailers, especially when I saw that they were retaining all of Leon's melee attacks, and seemed to be leaning into the over-the-top nature of Resident Evil 4. In some instances, they seem to be pushing the over-the-top nature even further than I thought, by allowing Leon to actually parry a chainsaw with a goddamn combat knife. If that isn't the very essence of Resident Evil 4 distilled into a single moment, then I don't know what is. I can't say that I'm not skeptical, especially considering how disappointing Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes were as remakes. As standalone games, RE2 and 3 Remake are extremely fun with some great scares, interesting designs, and cool mechanics to play around with, but as remakes of the classic titles, they're extremely lacking in a lot of the magic that made the OG titles so beloved and revered. Once again, I'll go further into this in future videos. Nonetheless, here's to hoping that with Resident Evil 4 Remake, Capcom takes a lot of the lessons that they learned from putting together 2 and 3 Remake and creates something that's, at the very least, a nice complement to the original Resident Evil 4. If not, we'll likely have another fun Resident Evil game that's not a very good remake, but in either case, I'm looking forward to finally seeing for myself in a few months. With that being said, those are my most anticipated games of 2023. But there are definitely a lot of other games that I'm looking forward to this year. But if I kept going, this video would have been over an hour long, so I'll briefly go over them right now. Of course, you guys know that I'm really looking forward to Dead Space Remake. It looks awesome. Mega Man Battle Network Collection also looks very cool. Like a Dragon Ishin looks incredibly stylish and will likely steal my life away for a few weeks. when it releases. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe looks like a great port of the Wii Classic. One of the more surprising things that I'm looking forward to is the Dark Pictures Switchback VR, which is essentially a follow-up to Until Dawn's Rush of Blood, which was one of the best VR games on the PS4. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the PS5 VR this year, or maybe I'll wait for a price cut or something, but either way, this should be a very good game. And of course, the other game that I'm very much looking forward to is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I'm only really looking forward to this because it is the next game from Rocksteady Studios, and it is the follow-up to Arkham Knight, which is a game that I absolutely adore, and I love all the other games that Rocksteady has put out, so hopefully this is a good one. We will see though. Then there are a few titles that I'm not sure about whether or not they will be released in 2023 or 2024, like Alan Wake 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. However, of all these games, I am most excited for Tekken 8. That looks mind-blowingly good. I cannot believe how good this game looks, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and play as my favorite fighting game character, Jin Kazama, to finally break the chains, baby. Break those chains, Jin, you can do it. So, what games are you guys looking forward to? Did I miss something on this list that you're really interested in? Be sure to post them in the comment section below, and of course, do all the things that the algorithm likes. Comment, subscribe, hit the bell button, hit the like button, hit the dislike button, whatever you gotta do. Just do it. Bring me back into that algo, baby. Anyway, hope you're all having yourselves a fine day. Once again, my name is Atrophy of Soul, and I will be sure to see you all next time.